So, I was at a fascinating 3 conversations at Z Arts this morning, and I think all of you were in different conversations around the city. And what we were able to do was have a conversation and then bring us all together and talk about all the other things we'd missed in those morning sessions. And what we've done is ask 3 people to kind of capture all the things they heard from this morning, things that really resonated with them, and feed them back here now, so that essentially you get a bit of a snapshot of all the conversations that have been taking place. And then there's going to be an opportunity for you, there'll be some microphones, to bring up anything you've not heard that you heard this morning, you'd like to repeat, or that's not been said at all today that you think's important to be on the agenda, or if there's an action you wish to ask people, you ask your colleagues in the room to take with you. So I'll give them a brief introduction, then hand over. So our first speaker will be Carol Walker, who works at Contact Theatre here in Manchester. Our second speaker will be Jamie Beddard, who's an actor and co-director of Diversity. And our final speaker will be Polly Hamilton, who is the Vice Chair of the Chief Culture and Leisure Officers Association. So over to you, Carol. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So this morning I was asked to come in on behalf of Contact Theatre, being a young person that has worked there for a very long time, and being involved with so many different projects with the theatre there. And I was asked to contribute to the talk on what can we do to support and enable young and diverse talent. And there was many interesting things that came up about, well, we've got all of this young talent, how can we merge it together and actually get young people involved? And one of the things that came up first was, well, how can venues and organisations help young people? What is their role and how do they support young people? It's all well and good saying that you're going to do something, but actually doing it is a different thing. And I found that some of the theatres in Manchester have been absolutely brilliant because they actually do things. It was great before when it was said, if you feel something needs doing, then do it. It's so true. I'm a huge advocate for doing. And we also have to meet in the middle, because a lot of young people also need to step up and show that they're interested. But how do we actually open it up so as many young people feel comfortable enough to do that? There seems to be organisations that want to work with young people, but how? That's what kept on coming up. How do we actually engage these young people? What is it we can do to reach young people in Manchester that are in a different area to where our building is? What is it that we can actually do? And there was talk on how grassroots and larger organisations need to work together and form partnerships. So the theatres in Manchester, freelancers in Manchester, actually how can we join together to ensure that our pool of networking is so big that we know different young people can work in different projects that we have. Another action that we talked about was, how do we break the tradition of employing people like ourselves? It happens. In all organisations, we tend to employ people that look like us or are like us. How do we break that? How do we actually stop it? And we wanted to ask organisations to actually do something, to actually employ outside of their norm. And by doing that, they're bringing in new and fresh faces. And that will also trickle down into those organisations, because they'll know new people who they may be able to bring into different projects and get involved. And it's actually taking those steps in doing something. And as Aisha just said, it's about collaboration. How can we all work together and do something? So this morning was really interesting for me, because going in as a young person and just talking about my experiences, it was great to see that so many other people were pushing for this, that they actually wanted this to happen because they see how good it can be for young people. And if we can create these opportunities, then young people will take them and they will do so many good things. And it is a risk, but actually, how can we take that risk and for it to have a positive impact on all of our organisations? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Jamie.
Can you hear me? Good. We had a really good discussion. We were looking at what the chance to make diversity more part of the sector. And what has changed in the last 20 years. We came to the conclusion that not a lot. So I don't want to come back here in another 20 years saying over diversity, but we might be. The arts sector is lagging behind the commercial sector. A lot of big artists are going straight into the commercial sector rather than coming into the public sector, and that seems ridiculous and annoying. I think diversity is theoretical for whatever about it. Funding. That's why we talk about diversity, rather than believing in it and making the changes we need to make it a real thing. Diverse people are very real. We are real. We're not some with something to do with that. The other thing I know is a lot of disabled people are really feeling cut at the moment. Disabled people are 19 more times affected by obstacles than non-disabled people. And a lot of people I know are worried about surviving rather than working. And we need to connect to the wider political stuff. We need advocates around enabling disabled people to work. But still, give me a minute, I'm losing my breath. I'm not gonna die. 40% of MBOs don't mention access on their website, and that is ridiculous. If you're getting public money, you've got to connect to the public out there. And if you're not, you should have your money taken away. Well, yeah, we need to learn more and maybe someone in my sector come and say more, but that'll do for the time, please. My time is up.
Bang on time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Polly.
Okay. Hi, Polly Hamilton. I'm Vice Chair of the Chief Culture and Leisure Officers Association, so very much working at a national level, but at a local level, of course, we are the coalface of the cuts that come through local government. But the session this morning was about culture and placemaking and partnership, and how we can work together. And 3 of us spoke, myself giving an overview of some of the ways, some of the approaches that were being taken around the placemaking agenda in terms of cultural planning, delivery of events, learning and engagement, the importance of talent development so that we have a legacy, and cultural infrastructure and public realm. And that all of that, of course, is about delivering on outcomes that relate to prosperity, economic development, identity, a sense of belonging, social impacts like well-being and so forth. I should just say, can I just revert back? There's a lot of talk, obviously, about 30% cuts in local government, and that is true, but that doesn't mean to say that we have lost 30% of our arts and culture provision. In fact, far from it, and in many places, some of the most unexpected places that I've had the privilege of working, or that my colleagues work, in Stoke-on-Trent, in Leeds, in Peterborough, many, many different places, and in my own place in Blackpool, we've actually increased provision, and we've increased the numbers of people who are engaging, and it's important to remember that amongst all of this. So we had a superb discussion as well. I gave an overview. A wonderful man called Mike Locke, who I'd never spoken to before these sessions. He came to us from North Kesteven Council, a district council, and talked about an amazing project to do with integrating art into leisure, and created an extraordinary digital water flume in a swimming pool that celebrated the history relating to the Vulcan bomber. Who knew? I mean, the extraordinary stuff going on in places. And then the brilliant David Micklem talked about 64 million artists and everyday creativity and how important that is. So, the really key themes that came across, we need to be really clear that when we're talking about great art and culture, what we also mean is great creativity. There are plenty of ways that we can unlock support from the business sector, from local government, from all sorts of interesting partners, but it doesn't necessarily have to start on the basis of how much money have you got. It actually needs to start on what can you bring and what do you value. And partnerships, of course, are integral, and they are therefore on the basis of shared values, and they're about people and rarely about institutions. What actions did we talk about? Well, fundamentally opening up the language so that we can create some common ground. We need to identify more champions, both within different sectors. Find Mike. Whatever sector, you need to find the Mike in that sector. And whether they're popular champions that are part of the public imagination, the Johnny Vegases, the Danny Boyles, or even somebody like a Nina Conti, who are very much part of the popular imagination but understand the different worlds. And encouraging investment on the basis of what do we want the future to look like, rather than what the past should tell us it once was. I'm going to finish just by saying a note of hope. Somebody suggested that 5% of Arts Council investment could support, David Micklem suggested 5% of Arts Council investment could support 1,000 cultural connectors. But the reality is that all of us here are cultural connectors. And that's where we need to get to, is that it doesn't matter which organisation you work for, you are a cultural connector. And it's really important, I think, that the people in this room believe in their own brilliance, because there is a financial sector that's created a crisis, which means that the roller coaster has gone downhill. But let's remember, it also goes up. And it's a little Blackpool reference for you there.
Thank you very much. So we've heard from Kyle about how the grassroots and venues can work together, opportunities for young people, how we break recruiting like us. Jamie picked up on the issue of recruitment, looking at the commercial sector, which does far better than we apparently do in terms of diversity, how we advocate and champion for those who have disabilities to be able to cope with austerity, which has hit hard, and the shocking fact that 40% of MPOs don't mention access on their website, And we've talked about how we can take a positive approach to it, how we open up creativity and not just talk about cuts, finding Mike, opening the language and encouraging investment based on the future. So those are just some of the things we've heard so far today. I think there's some microphones somewhere around. Brilliant. So if I don't know if you can see with the lights the way they are, but are there things that you've heard that you really need the whole room to hear? Are there actions you want to take, questions you want to pose, or things that haven't been talked about so far? No? Okay, I can't sing for 10 minutes. You wouldn't like it, believe me. It's not good. Is there anything from any other sessions? Oh, there we are. Hey. I can't see though with these lights. Esther, can you wait for the mic to get you? Because the streaming and the captioning is picking up on what's being said. Great relay. We're going to beat the Olympians at this, no worries. But if we can wait for the microphone, it just means what you said is getting properly captured. Thank you very much.
Hi. My name's Esther Ferry-Kennington from Horse and Bamboo Theatre, but also here as part of Arts Lancashire. And Lancashire as a rural area, we've not quite managed to make a What's Next chapter work, and I kind of had a question for the room about areas in which geographically people are very widely spread with no kind of obvious geographical centre or travel route. Am I getting a spotlight? No. Yeah, just because it felt quite urban, and just a discussion about how we might make that work in sort of rural spread areas. Thank you.
There was a Lancashire chapter at one point that Jenny Rutter was running, but if you speak to anyone from the national leads or just any of the existing chairs, I'm sure would talk to you about helping set one up and get one going and share our experiences. Great. Any other questions or comments? There's a question here.
I've got a question, and I was hoping to have a few more minutes to formulate how I was going to ask it because it's a little bit sensitive. But basically, in terms of it's become very, very important to me today in terms of as I'm building local partnerships, and so I lead one of the smaller What Next groups, and also activity in a place where there's very little infrastructure, and so I'm working really hard to build partnerships with political organisations and community and all across sectors, and with a sort of What Next hat on, we set up a workshop a few weeks ago that was about looking at an issue that's very close to the hearts of lots of our communities, that I'm going to have to name. Basically, the library's being closed due to local council funding cuts, and is this being streamed?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, we were the local council who are trying to support us in other areas because we're so few people. There's very few people can do different things. The local council were not happy that we were facilitating a workshop to enable community members to discuss it, and how can that didn't feel like a unique experience. How does anybody have advice on how to work when there's so few people trying to do lots of potentially conflicting things? How to manage that?
Is there anyone here who would be willing to just spend 5 minutes in the break offering some advice, some experience, some guidance? If so, would you put your hand up now? All those who... Yeah, Polly's here. If you two can connect to the break, that would be great. Thank you very much. Are there any other... we've got a one hand shooting right up at the back there.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nikki Locke. I run East Durham Creates, which is one of the Creative People and Places projects in East Durham. And it was rather than just a question, just a lot of the things that people are talking about today. With Creative People and Places, we're an action learning programme. So we've been trying lots of different things in lots of different places, lots of different types of rurals, cities, all these different places. So, and quite a lot of our kind of learning that we've done, because we're really honest, it's exactly the kind of ethos and mindset that all here together, so we admit what doesn't quite work or we might have done a little bit differently. But there's lots of us out there running lots of little tests, so if you want to kind of have a think about how you might do something, then please go and check out some of the work that we've been doing, because you never know, we might have already tested it, it's something that you're thinking about. But yeah, we're a good resource, and it's just great to hear that. So some big joining up to be doing there, I think, as well, definitely. Thanks.
Thank you. Someone else over here would like the mic next? And is there anyone on the upstairs?
Hiya. I think kind of pricing the lady's question from over there, but probably something that a lot of us feel is, what support can we get from perhaps What Next or our other local partnerships when effectively what we are doing is biting the hand that feeds?
I think that's a really good point, actually. It's a really delicate relationship sometimes, isn't it? I don't know whether people want to, it's not for me to give answers, talk in the room, or whether actually it's worth you trying to find either Polly at the break or any of the kind of national leads, or Dave Mutree's put his hand up there, to kind of talk through experience, Laura from Cardiff as well. This is what Next is about. We're all in it together. So please seek out your colleagues and take advice. You're not likely to be the first person treading down the road. And there are other people from the national team, Lizzie and Hannah, Claire and others here today, who I'm sure will be happy to talk you through or put you in touch with your colleagues from elsewhere in the country. We've got a comment in the front here.
Already. It's actually slightly picking up on that point as well. Polly, I mean, I agree with your positivity. We are all here because we are supporters and connectors, but we are not all supported. And I'm an independent artist. I am lucky enough to have circumstances where, due to various factors, I can pay my own way for a lot of work that I do, which means that I can give stuff back to my community because that's what I care to do. There are probably lots of artists who want to do that, but are not in a position to do it without that support. So where you're saying that you're still getting the same, result out of less money, I would ask, how much of that is being subsidised by the artists rather than by other funds?
Do you want to take the mic there?
Just a quick response to that. Obviously, I think I would say about local government is it's worth remembering it is a spectrum like any other sector. So you're going to get people who really are great, and you're going to get people who are less great, who need help and support in seeing how things can be done differently. I live with an artist. I support an artist, very real way. So I do feel your pain. I can speak in Blackpool. Blackpool has been very fortunate because we were able to we bid for Creative People and Places funding, we got it. And whilst there are always going to be those local artists who feel that they would like more, should like more, but we have got evidence of a number of artists now who are able to make a living in Blackpool in a way that they just simply weren't able to 3 years ago. Now, that's a fantastic success story. And when I was talking before about talent development, for me, the leaders of the future are those who are those artists, those emerging fledgling organisations where you've got great imaginative, creative, extraordinary people that just need that little bit of extra help. And I think that's where Creative People and Places, combined with what the local authority had been doing previously through the Arts Service, I think that's been a legacy of which I'm really proud. But I do accept it's not the same everywhere. But the fact is, in terms of the local authority, arts officers and people working within cultural services, they are themselves the people who are trying to make the case desperately to retain funds. And each year we go into a bidding round along with all our other colleagues. And to be very brutal, it's really, really tough and it's very lonely, and it can be very difficult to make the case to other officers and to members that, how can you compare child safeguarding with arts and culture? Now, I argue both are important, but all of us have got to do our bit. In terms of the how do we make it work, there is no magic bullet on any of this. It is just about, I think, networks like this and continuing to find different ways. But the money in Blackpool has come from a whole set of other places. It's come from the lottery. It's come from places like public health. It's come from, in some small cases, the business community. So it's come from, what we have is a wider set of funders now funding the sector, whereas previously it was entirely, and I mean pretty much 100%, the local authority, with a very small amount of arts lottery money coming in. That has now changed partly because it had to, but partly because of the drive that we've done to try and create distributed leadership across the town. So I know other places are doing it, and I'm happy to talk to anyone afterwards.